Hi, everyone, and welcome to this installment of the Udacity Thought Leadership webinar series. I'm your host, Kirk Werner, Vice President of Content at Udacity. Today, I'm pleased and excited to have a conversation with Sidney Madison Prescott, Global Head of Intelligent Automation at Spotify. Sidney, your career path has been an unconventional journey in the sense that you started off wanting to be a lawyer, majoring in philosophy and pre-law in college, and then you transitioned into a more technology role, focusing more on the automation and optimization aspects. And you've been at the forefront of this movement ever since, working with organizations such as First Data Corporation, BNY Mellon, and now presently with Spotify. Outside of work, you've also been an active member and a leader of many philanthropic organizations, including growing opportunities for female leaders in the tech workforce. Sidney, welcome to the webinar.
Thank you so much, Kirk. I am very excited to be here.
Let's get into it and start with talking about your new book, RPA, a Citizen Developer's Guide to Hyperautomation Using UiPath Studio X. It looks like it's one of the best starting points for developers and really anybody who's looking to automate tasks using UiPath. Can you tell us more about the book and how you got started on collaborating to build it?
Yes, thanks for that introduction. So I have being within the space of RPA and intelligent automation, I've started to see a really great need for more content around citizen developers. And when I say citizen developers, I mean individuals who are really business users, kind of not engineers by trade, who are really interested in going along on this automation journey and starting to upskill in robotic process automation, maybe even some small machine learning models and things of that nature. And so there wasn't really a lot of content around this as I started formulating thoughts for various centers of excellence within my career. And I was approached by a few other individuals, developers, business analysts who are really also interested in this topic. And more importantly, we all saw the need for this level of content and the need to really help citizen developers or business users to have hands-on exercises where they could test out this type of automation, test out the different methodologies, and really learn more about robotic process automation on their own time. We had a lot of feedback that not a lot of stakeholders have different initiatives within their own companies that can teach them this level of material. And so that's really where the need came from. We saw a gap in the market. We heard from different business users that were really interested in learning how to upskill on these different technologies. And we saw that as an opportunity to really provide a hands-on guidebook, which is exactly what the book is. It's over 600 pages of hands-on activities. We have created all of the exercises that anyone would need to learn to upskill from the bottom up. So meaning you don't need to have any experience with RPA to pick up the book and to go through all of the exercises. We've gotten great feedback from various readers, those who may be beginner level, those who are intermediate level, and they all said that the fact that the book was, I'll say, less theory and more direct activities really helped them to better understand the nuances of RPA and to actually understand how they could incorporate it into their roles today.
You are absolutely speaking my language with more of this hands-on work. This is exactly what we do here at Udacity. I am completely aligned with you on this. For those of you who are kind of experiencing RPA for the first time or even wondering exactly what is robotic process automation, can you give us a brief definition? And then what are some of the things that you would do normally in an organization, whether a company like Spotify or any of the other ones you've worked in, to using RPA? How would you use it?
Absolutely. So robotic process automation, or RPA for short, it really is software. So we're not talking about physical, tangible robots, but software that mimics a human user's experience navigating through different applications. And typically these are business applications. So you can think of Excel, Word, maybe navigating through your internal HR system, your internal legal system. So basically any business system that an end user or human interacts with today, we can interface with that same system with RPA. And in essence, the robotic software allows us to design workflows, and these automated workflows mimic the steps that a human user would take to interface with a particular system, to be able to guide various inputs, data manipulation and outputs. And it really is very much tool agnostic. So the great part about RPA is that we can touch a lot of different systems, and we can also work with both the front end, or typically what an end user sees, the user interface. We can also work with APIs. So that level of flexibility is great for us because it allows us to really dive into a larger scope when we talk about use cases. And then in terms of what can you automate, I mean, the honestly, it's an endless kind of opportunity. The landscape is very wide. So we automate everything from tasks that are kind of data reconciliation, moving data between one system or another, processing high levels of data with very complex kind of business logic. We can automate the creation of different tickets. So instead of having a human user type in and enter different data to create, let's say, like an IT ticket, for instance, we could actually have a robot do that. So in essence, you can think of any task that a human user does today that is extremely rules-based, very manual, very repetitive. That is a great use case for RPA. And then as we branch forward, you can also start incorporating in use cases that may not be as rules-based if you start stacking the other tools within intelligent automation, like machine learning, OCR, optical character recognition, things of that nature. So again, you start to widen the scope of what you can address as you start to build the intelligent automation tool stack. But the RPA tool itself is extremely rules-based. And we're looking at how do we make humans more efficient by stripping away those manual, repetitive, tedious tasks.
And I can remember a time when you would build macros within a tool. So you would build macros within Excel worksheet, and then you would press the button, it would automate 2 or 3 tasks. What you're doing with RPA is you're building these automated tool sets across technologies. And so not just within Excel or within a Word file, but actually going from an office documentation, moving into a database tool, moving into an HR system, and validating data across those systems, right? It's a multi-tool process.
Absolutely. So this is very much cross-functional. We can cross, in essence, the application landscape, and we can, and this is both internal applications or directly within the environment. These are also external applications. We can interface with those as well. So again, it's a very flexible tool, and it gives you a lot of bandwidth in terms of what types of manual work that you can actually automate.
Yeah, this sounds like a very powerful way of using the technology to aid in individual users in their work rather than replacing them. It actually seems a way to kind of elevate the work out of this repetitive task motion into more thought work. How has RPA been accepted in the workplace? It's been a big part of your work for the last number of years. So how's it been as you've gone from organization to organization? How has it been accepted, and how have you seen the adoption grow?
Yeah, so it has been an interesting journey. So I can recall, I would say I call myself an early adopter of robotic process automation and intelligent automation. So I started really my journey with RPA, I would say back in 2015. And so at that time, it was very new. And so there wasn't a lot of appetite, to be completely honest, for the technology, the methodologies, because it still was in that unproven kind of state. And so it was very challenging to find senior leaders, C-suite level leaders who were open to leveraging this type of technology. There was also a bit of a challenge in terms of the I'll say the perception of RPA, the perception of bringing in a robotic or a digital workforce. We have unfortunately heard a lot of kind of negative press, I'll say, around robots, around automation, around the potential to take away jobs. And so, unfortunately, there were at the beginning there were a lot of voices that were talking about the negative aspects and kind of a lot of speculation about how automation would potentially impact the human workforce. So that was the beginnings. That was about 5 or 6 years ago. Now, thankfully, there were, as practitioners started to pick up and started to really hone in on the benefits of RPA and of automation in general, that started to change the landscape of the conversations. And that really helped penetrate, I'll say, the mindsets and the appetite of senior leaders, C-suite leaders, to actually want to start to potentially host a pilot or host a proof of concept around robotic process automation. I believe that we still have a ways to go in terms of taking away the stigma that surrounds, I will say, automation in the human workforce. But I also see a lot of potential in terms of utilization of robots to create this fully augmented digital workforce whereby humans and robots work together simultaneously in partnership. And so that is our goal at Spotify, is to really create a true digital workforce whereby we have a seamless partnership between the digital assistants, which are our robots, and our Spotifyers, our human employees. I think that we are setting the right tone by the way that we're doing that at Spotify. Is we're really upskilling and bringing our business stakeholders along on that journey rather than owning the entire life cycle and really kind of keeping the building or the development of the robots within the center of excellence. We are actually empowering and enabling our business stakeholders through various internal trainings to actually learn how to build bots, learn the nuances of robotic process automation, the benefits, and really learn how to incorporate this technology into their daily work. And that is the key. That really allows business stakeholders to feel excited about the upskilling journey, excited about leveraging these bots, and it strips away that tension, that fear surrounding the use of automation and the potential that it has to disrupt the workforce. I'll say it in a negative way. I do think that the goal for us is to disrupt the workforce, but in a positive way, in a way that really enhances human output, enhances efficiency, and enhances overall appreciation and excitement for work, for the passion for the enterprise.
I think that's an important point, that we're talking about disruption, not destruction. Right? We're talking about how to make a disruptive move that helps us evolve rather than a destructive move that will tear something down. It's always still building the normal workplace, the normal workforce. It's not replacing anything. And so we're witnessing a period where automation first is that new game changer. Maybe thinking automation prior to what is the hands-on work that even needs to get done in a new process, where enterprises are leveraging their emerging technologies to automate processes and scale the digital transformation of their industries. What are some guiding principles that an enterprise should adopt in an automation first mindset?
Great question. I would start with saying, think of it as an iterative journey. So think of it as you don't want to attempt to take the most complex process that touches various important aspects of the business and start there. So start small, take and really take the time to understand what lessons you can glean out of that pilot. I would also suggest absolutely start with a pilot, start with a proof of concept before you dive into wanting to create an enterprise level center of excellence. And I say that because there are a lot of different nuances in different companies, and you have to think about that. Think about the company culture, the way that your human employees will see this effort and experience this effort. And you also have to figure out the right cadence with your workforce to introduce these concepts. And as we all know, and one thing I always call out, it's very, very important not to underestimate the human change management aspect of embarking on a journey like this. So I would say start small, start with a pilot, make sure that you have very clear guidelines and guardrails around what success means. What does success look like for that pilot implementation? What are the attributes that you're looking to discover and to benchmark to call that pilot a success? And also diving into metrics. I think one of the keys is you always want to make sure that you clearly understand those key performance indicators that are going to really solidify whether or not that effort yielded the benefits that you initially believed that it would yield. And the last piece I would say is make sure that you manage expectations. So one of the key pointers that I like to call out, a lot of the terminology surrounding robotic process automation, tool agnostic, dives into it's low code, no code, anybody can do it, it's really fast, it's really easy. That I believe is a little bit of a misnomer, because realistically, and no matter what, if someone is not skilled at this, it does take time for them to learn it. So we have to be a little bit more realistic about the amount of time and effort that it will take for our employees to upskill, even the amount of time and effort it will take to stand up the environment that you need to actually run the tools of this nature. So be sure to manage those expectations at the senior leadership level. Cannot stress that enough.
I think that's a fantastic point. It's like any new skill, it requires time spent learning. It's not something that is, oh, I'm just going to immediately step into it and tomorrow I'm going to change the industry. It's not going to change the enterprise. I'm going to try and do small bits first, a proof of concept, like you said, a pilot program, so I can show, hey, this can work. And now I can expand it to another step or another step or another step, rather than I'm going to try and boil the ocean on my very first try. Because you have to learn, not only learn the technology, but learn what is it really capable of doing and what are we comfortable with it doing within our environment. How can an organization evaluate which processes should be automated and with which technologies we should use? And going beyond even RPA, going into intelligent automation entirely, is RPA kind of a gateway into the broader world of intelligent automation? How would you describe how that should work for an organization who maybe wants to get started and where they should start?
Absolutely. I would say yes, I would say it is the gateway, meaning it is typically the use cases that you're looking at are very rules based. And because they're very rules based, you really are looking for processes that are standardized already, processes that are mature. So a process that you clearly understand the nuances of the ins and outs, every single step of that process. And you're looking also for stability of the underlying applications, and all of those together really yield a great use case for RPA. I will say, I believe that RPA is a great starting point for anyone who is looking to get into intelligent automation, because of the fact that it is very rules based. So you can look for processes that you already have your SOPs for, you already clearly understand the nuances of, and you start to automate those. Once you get your grounding and you really get moving with your center of excellence, you can then start branching into processes that are less rules-based and require more human decision-making. And that is where we start bringing in the machine learning aspect of the puzzle. So this is where we can start doing some predictive analytics. This is where we can actually start potentially predicting different actions that maybe a human user should take if the bot hits a certain hurdle. But this is where you really start building out the tool stack. I would say this is also where you can start really diving into your use cases that have less machine readable data. So data such as PDFs, even Word documents, like documents that you typically would not be able to pull the data from. You could start using document understanding or optical character recognition and build customized machine learning models on top of that to be able to better extract the data and get a stronger percentage, I'll say, of straight through processing. And then your final frontier is artificial intelligence. And this is where we really start diving into, it's almost less of the predictive analytics, and it starts to move towards in stages. It starts to move towards truer, I'll say, closer to human cognition. So meaning that the robotic process would be able to, in essence, start to learn, start to understand what potential issues it might run into, and potentially even what types of or kinds of remediation steps that can be taken. And this we start to use interchangeably, where humans may be involved in this, so you can have human in the loop with that as well. But that's that entire spectrum. So it really starts out with kind of your basic process automation, very rules-based, very mundane, very repetitive, same steps over and over again, very little deviation. That's RPA. Starts branching into more deviation, less machine readable data, the need to predict and analyze large amounts of data a bit more. That's your machine learning, that's your optical character recognition. And then finally, if you want that full scope of cognition, closer to being able to make decisions and take action, this is where we get into human in the loop and then eventually artificial intelligence.
And I think that describing it that way that you just did so succinctly also kind of indicates the escalation of skills required. That you can't introduce RPA to an organization, have somebody working in RPA, and then a month later say, can you start working on some machine learning algorithms for me? Like there's different skills that need to be evolved. There's different teams that need to be integrated. It's a different workforce to do some of those further down the path automated intelligence tools, right?
It is. And one thing I will say, so when we started building the Center of Excellence at Spotify, we knew where we wanted to go. And that's another, I would say, call out that I would make to anyone who is on the journey to build out a Center of Excellence, is really understanding how far do you want to take it? Or are you looking to eventually move into machine learning? Are you looking to eventually start to leverage artificial intelligence? And if the answer is yes, then you can start to build out your team, whether it's with RPA developers who also have machine learning experience, whether it is starting with RPA developers, but knowing that eventually you will bring on machine learning engineers. So understanding kind of where you want to go helps you to better define, okay, how am I going to build out this team? Is it going to be in phases? Am I looking for individuals who are multifaceted and who can actually do both? I would say on our team, we have a mixture of both. So we have some individuals that are multifaceted who have machine learning and RPA experience. We have some individuals who are really strong at RPA and they want to learn the machine learning aspects of the business. So it's a great mix. And then we're also starting to include individuals who are very skilled at designing machine learning models, and that is really their wheelhouse. So it's a combination of all three, but that is because of the fact that we know where we want to take it, which is we do eventually want to get to that stage where we are leveraging AI. We're currently, I'll say, we're at the interim stage of we're leveraging RPA, we're leveraging machine learning, we are leveraging OCR. We're starting to look at heading in the direction of artificial intelligence next.
Yeah, and that's a great segue into my next question. If there's one thing the pandemic has taught us, it's to build resilience that we need to outpace any business uncertainties. Change management is super important. Understanding and building curiosity in an organization is super important. From your experiences in multiple organizations and also just being a thought leader in this space, what are some of the common challenges that enterprises face when it comes to implementing and scaling intelligent automation, as well as how do they tie it into their broader digital transformation agenda?
Mm, I would say the challenges, again, go back to perception. So, perception that it's easy, perception that anybody can do it, you can stand it up in 24 hours. That quite often sets the center of excellence. It does not set you up for success, in essence. So, I would say starting out, one of the challenges is kind of stripping away that perception that it's very easy and that it's super fast to stand up. It actually does take time to incorporate these technologies into your environment. And whether that's on the infrastructure side or on again, the people management, the change management aspect. I think another piece of the puzzle is it can be challenging if you don't have senior leadership buy-in of this sort of initiative. So the most successful centers of excellence that I have been a part of have had, I'll say, very strong C-suite buy-in for not only digital transformation, but this style of journey into digital transformation, because digital transformation, it has so many different facets. It's much broader than just RPA. It's even much broader than intelligent automation. And so it really depends on where your senior leadership wants to go with digital transformation, also how fast they want to move to move the needle in terms of digital transformation. So that can be a challenge as well if you are a leader in your center of excellence and you don't have that senior leadership buy-in to either move at the pace that you want or to incorporate I'll say that trajectory that I mentioned before of the different tools that are necessary to build out an intelligent automation program at scale. And then I would say the final piece of that is really helping your business stakeholders to see the value in this. So to see the value in this digital transformation, because it is quite an undertaking. It does require a lot of bandwidth, both from your business leaders, your engineering team, and you really have to partner together to make it a success. And there has to be an agreement in terms of the dedication, the level of dedication, time, effort, even budgetary concerns to actually enable this level of, well, I'll say in order to enable a program to start, but also to scale rapidly. So I think budgetary concerns, senior leadership buy-in, also not underestimating the complexity of these technologies, the complexity of bringing them into your enterprise. Those are typically where you see challenges with scale, and then also the business making sure that they can adapt to these technologies. So it's one thing, a lot of centers of excellence will say, we're going to build it and then they will come. But ideally, you want them to be excited about it and coming to you before you have fully scaled out, which is we're quite successful at that. And we're very happy about that at Spotify, is that we do have business stakeholders that have been very engaged and excited from the beginning, even before we started to scale. And that allowed us to see the demand. So we had demand, and then we were able to create a supply that could address that demand, rather than building out a huge center of excellence and having no demand, because then that's where you start seeing challenges and senior leaders starting to ask you to cut back. So I would say create the demand first, and that helps to drive, from a leadership level, from a budgetary perspective, the need almost to really start rapidly scaling.
So let's talk about the rapidly scaling a little bit, because this gets into one of those fascinating topics for me, and that is, how do you bridge that talent gap, either growing inside of an organization or finding the talent outside the organization to come in and like help solve that that gap that you've created by creating all the demand at first and then having to create the supply. So as a leader, what sort of skills do you look for in a team that is driving this new growth of intelligence or digital transformation? What are you looking for?
That's a wonderful question. So I really pride myself on creating very, I'll say, innovative and high performing teams. And in order to do that, I'm looking for the fundamental skill that I'm looking for is individuals that are willing to think outside of the box, and to really explore, or have excitement for business challenges and how to tackle those. I also typically look for individuals that are not only technologically savvy, but individuals who know how to use their technological skill set in a very unique way. So I'm looking for individuals who can take, whether they know Python, whether they know Java, whether they know C Sharp, take those skills and use them in a way that is unexpected. That is what I really think creates the more of a dynamic, I'll say, developer. And also I look for someone who can adapt, someone who is able to think on their feet very quickly, and someone who really is a big believer in being a team player. It quite often we have developers, and as a developer, typically the mindset is, you sit, you develop by yourself, you showcase what you've done. I like to actually go in the opposite direction, where we're workshopping about the code that we're working on, and what we're doing there is, in essence, we're sharing ideas, right? And we're trying to actually poke holes in our own logic as we start building out these workflows. And it's very much a skill of a high performing team, because it creates a level of trust in one another, where you feel comfortable sharing if you feel that someone's design could be improved in a certain sort of way, if you feel that you see synergy in their design with something else and you want to try to meld those together. So I think that level of camaraderie, that level of communication is something that I really look for, and that really requires someone who has the skill set to be a team player, to be able to communicate easily, and also someone who can speak about very complex topics, and complex ideas in such a way that even someone who is not technologically savvy would be able to clearly understand and digest. And that is actually quite a hard skill to come across. Someone who is very technical, but can take a technical concept and speak about it in such a way to easily convey it to a business stakeholder. And so I think, as we start to think about what are the skill sets of the future, that I think the less of the separation of, here's the business, here's technology speaks in a language that the business doesn't understand, that is starting to go away. It's really starting to become all about, how can we speak the same language, even though we have completely different skill sets, even though we have completely different objectives that we are trying to accomplish. At the end of the day, we are working for the same enterprise. We fundamentally have the same mission, which is to keep the enterprise at the top of its game, right? To achieve all of our objectives. So we have to start learning how to really meld the conversation in such a way as to kind of get rid of that divide between technology and business. And so I look for individuals that are open to that new sort of way of thinking about technology and business, less of a divide, more of a partnership.
Do you think that your background in a non-technical, your academic career started in a non-technical way? You came into the world from a philosophy and pre-law. I came into the world from history and philosophy. We could probably go and have a nice conversation about Immanuel Kant if you really want to. It's probably not good for this particular webinar. But do you think your background in a non-technical environment to a more technical environment helped you think through the the melding of these skills, having both the technical skills and the non-technical skills to make a complete individual and a complete team. Do you think that affected your point of view?
Absolutely. I always say I think that is one of my strong points, the fact that I did not originate in a technology from a technology background, but from a professional standpoint, that has been my background because it has really helped me. So I have the mindset from the business side in terms of logic, in terms of writing, really in terms of thinking through complex problems. So that side I already had from, I'll say, the philosophy and the pre-law. The technical nuances, then I received that within my professional career. So I do think I have the best of both worlds. I've seen that there's been some research and a lot of different discussions around the benefit of having a humanities background within a technology role. And I'm absolutely an advocate of that. I think that, again, the industry is gearing that way, where we need individuals that have both skill sets and both capabilities. I also think that when you are able to do both, you can be more compassionate to your business stakeholders, and you really start to better understand their viewpoint and their perspective, and you bake that into the way that you go about your technical execution. And I think that is very important. So I would say yes, that my background is different, but I think that difference has actually helped to enable my success in the technology sector. And I would say it's a benefit if you do not come from a technical background, but you have the ability to upskill yourself in a technical manner. You then become almost like a double-edged sword, because you can do both. You can flex your skills on the business side, you can flex your skills on the technology side, and you can speak to both sides in terms of your stakeholders. So it makes you a very valuable asset.
So as we start to wrap up, one of the things I'm constantly asked is, partially because of where we are at Udacity in terms of reskilling and upskilling workforces, is it more advantageous to reskill or upskill some of your existing teams, grabbing them from maybe other departments who have an aptitude for some of the new some of the technologies that are growing? Or is it more advantageous to find and hire those individuals who have that mix you're looking for? What's your point of view on that?
Excellent question. Both. So I am a huge believer in I'll call that a hybrid workforce, meaning that we take individuals that we've started to upskill internally, who find this work to be fascinating, intellectually stimulating, who want to continue to further their growth in a certain direction. And we nurture that passion, that desire, and that's our internal stakeholders. We also simultaneously look out in the market for those diamonds in the rough to see, who is out there, who's doing very unique, creative work in the intelligent automation space, and even going further, like diving into process mining, diving into task mining. I mean, there's so many different components of digitization that are out there today. So we're looking to see what's really interesting and who's doing very unique work, and molding those two together. So your internal stakeholders who have upskilled, they already know the culture of the environment. They already understand kind of the upskilling journey from a business stakeholder to a more technical user. And you bring in your skilled, let's say maybe they're a machine learning expert, maybe they are a data scientist. You bring those individuals in and you meld them together. And what that creates is this really great, I'll say, kind of partnership and new kind of model for a team. So I think it's a bit of both. And that way you still retain the knowledge, the internal knowledge that you have with that stakeholder that you've upskilled, and they actually bring that passion and desire. They help to share that with that external stakeholder who has now become a new employee. So I don't think it's necessary to to build a team from scratch with completely external candidates. I actually prefer to mix both to provide a pathway to growth internally for business stakeholders or technical stakeholders as well, who become passionate and excited about this work, and combine them with brand new external candidates who may be I'll say they may have a particular skill set that is very valuable that we can bring inside, and then they can actually share that passion and that knowledge with our internal stakeholders.
I think that's fantastic. That's a fantastic point of view. And I love whenever you can answer both. I think that's the best way to go. And I think that's another pin to put on the philosophy background when there's not one answer to the problem, but I can tell you the answer in both ways. Sidney, I want to thank you for your time today. It's been a fantastic conversation about RPA, and I recommend if anybody has more questions about RPA, definitely look into Sidney's new book. It's fantastic. It's on the shelves now, and I hear it's doing fantastic at Amazon. The sales have been great. So congratulations, and thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.